Asteroids game in Unity 5. This is Mike Page with scriptingisfun.com. In this video we're going to be looking at how to make the alien spaceship shoot at us as we move around. That's the mechanic that we're working on. Let's jump right in and get started now. So now that he's chasing us, the next thing we want him to do is actually be able to shoot some bullets at us. So we want him to know where we are. Now we're already kind of getting a direction to where we are. We're going to have to kind of convert that into a rotation or a vector that we can fire down. So we'll have to play with that and see what we do there. But we're going to need a public game object variable here for our bullet. Whatever our projectile is going to be, we'll go ahead and either just use the one that the player is using, or maybe we'll go out and get some sort of a little laser beam looking thing or something to shoot at him. So we're going to need that so he can instantiate some bullets or projectiles and send them our way. And we can put a time delay in so he just isn't streaming out bullets all the time. So let's also put another variable up here, public float. This is going to be our shooting delay. So how long do we want him to delay between each shot? This will be in seconds. So we can put a note here on this. Time between shots in seconds. Just like that. And then we'll sign that out into the inspector so we can control how often he's shooting. This would be another way. Between speed and shooting delay is a way we can make this spaceship get increasingly more difficult as we go on through. Alright, so we've got a shooting delay. So in our update function, what we're going to do is we'll do a check here. We'll say if time.time gives me the current time on the game clock. So what time is it in the game right now? If that happens to be larger than the last time we shot plus our shooting delay, then we're good. So that brings me to another variable that we need. So let's put that variable in here real quick. We're going to also need a float that's called last time shot. And we can go ahead and default that to 0 at the very beginning here because he hasn't shot. Alright, so then here we can say if time.time is greater than the last time we shot plus our shot delay. Then we know that enough time has passed since the last time we shot to shoot again. So if that is true, then we're going to shoot. And after we shoot, we have to record last time shot equals time.time. So we make sure we update that to say, all right, we shot right now. At this tick on the game clock, we shot, so that then we'll wait again till the next shooting delay. So that brings us to the trickier part, which is shooting in the direction of the player. First thing we need to do is to figure out what angle the player is from the alien spaceship here. So we're going to be doing a little math here. We're going to need a float variable. We'll just call this angle, and we're going to use a built-in math functions. This is mathf. This is a tan2. This is a tangent function, and it needs to have the vector that the player is away from the alien. So if you remember down in the fixed update, we're getting direction here. That's our vector. So if we feed them the x and the y value, it will then be able to return us an angle in radians that will give us the angle to the player from the alien. So we're going to feed in direction dot y, and then it also wants direction dot x. We're going to take that times mathf, another math function, and this one is called rad2 degrees. And what that's going to do is it's going to convert the answer that we just got here in radians 2 degrees so that we can actually make use of it. We want that in Euler angle degrees. All right, and then also we need to then adjust it by a negative 90 degrees. So a lot of math there. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's the first step. Next, we need to have a quaternion. Quaternions is the way that Unity does angles. We're going to make a quaternion. We'll just call it Q for quaternion. And we're going to say quaternion dot angle axis. Angle axis will create a rotation, which rotates a certain amount of degrees around an axis. So we want to rotate things around the z-axis here in a 2D game. So we're going to say quaternion angle axis, and then we're going to feed it in our angle that we just computed above, and then we're going to feed it in which axis we want it to go around. We want it to go around the z-axis, so we can just call that vector 3 dot forward. Vector 3 dot forward is gives you a positive on the z-axis, so that will feed it in the right axis that we want. So now we're going to have a quaternion, which is another way of doing rotations. That's going to get us pointing at where the player currently is. And then all we have to do is instantiate our bullet. So make a bullet. And we're going to store that into a game object variable. So we're going to say game object. We'll call this new bullet. We'll go ahead and set that equal to instantiate. We're going to feed in our bullet prefab. And then we're just going to say, go ahead and make that bullet right here where we are. So right where the alien is, at the transform dot position. And the way we want to rotate the bullet is Q. That's that quaternion we made. So that'll get the bullet rotated so it is facing the player. All right, now that we've got it in the right direction, what we're going to do is we're going to give that bullet a push. So our bullet's going to have a rigid body. We'll do all that here in a bit, but we're going to say new bullet dot get component, and the component we want is the rigid body 2D. And to that rigid body, we're going to add some relative force, and we want to add that along a new vector 2. And it's going to be 0 on the x-axis because we're pushing it now. We want to push it on the y-axis because my bullets are drawn so that they're pointing in the y-axis direction. So we'll just go ahead and feed it in on the y. We're going to give it a bullet speed. Now I went ahead and typed in up here a public float bullet speed. That's going to hold how fast our bullet should move. So if you don't have that, type that in up there. And then we're going to use bullet speed right here. Alright, so that should get us making a bullet and then giving it a push. And the last thing we want to do is we want to update our last time shot so that we know that we just now made a new bullet. So we'll say last time shot equals time.time. Remember, time.time is the time on the game clock right now that as it's running. So we're going to save that the last time we shot a bullet on the game clock was right now. Alright, that should be all the code we need to make the alien spaceship shoot a bullet in the direction of the player. We just have to go out now and set the bullet up. And now let's find ourselves a bullet for our spaceship here. So let's see if we can find something that's a little cooler. So I found some free laser beam sprites out there on the internet here that give us some variety of different things that we could do. I'll try to put a link to that in the description below. So this is a sprite sheet that has multiple sprites in it. So when I brought it in, it picked it up as a sprite, but it thinks it's just a single sprite. So we actually have to divide this up into its individual pieces. So I'm going to switch this to multiple, and I'm going to hit apply, and then go to the sprite editor. And the sprite editor, I can go here to slice, and I'm just going to do an automatic slice, which will try to detect the borders of all the different pixels. I'll hit slice, You can click off of here to see what we've got, and you can see how it has gone in and kind of grabbed some of these. Now some of these are a bit fuzzy because they probably had some spare pixels in there and we need to clean them up a bit. Like this one has an empty space, we can delete that. Some of these here that have a bit of a glow all the way out, I'm going to go ahead and leave that because that might look good against our black background. Here though we've got some problems where the glows all kind of ran together. So what we can do is we can actually click around this big box and delete it, and we can draw our own boxes around the outside. So I'm just going to kind of guesstimate, make this pretty symmetrical here. Just drag it out that far for that one. So you can actually go in here and do this by hand if you like as well. So I'm going to figure that goes out maybe 2. That's pretty big and glowy. Maybe we'll even go down one more on the side here, grab the blue lines, bring that up a little bit more there. Bring it in a little bit here to get that center point more in the center. Okay, and then we can also change the pivot points of our sprites here too if we wish. So that's where a place you can do there. But once you've got all your sprites the way you want them, then you just hit apply up here and it'll break those all up into their own separate pieces. So see, now we have separate sprites here for all of these, and we can find something that looks cool, like maybe that would be kind of a cool thing to shoot out, or one of these glowy beams here. So now we've got a few sprites to pick from. So maybe we'll start, let's see, he's kind of blue, maybe we'll have him shoot a blue kind of a bolt. Let's drag one of those out in here and see what it looks like. Okay, and that's probably a good size. And now we just have to add a few components to our bullet to get him ready to go. So the main component that we need on our bullet is a rigid body, because if you remember in the script we are going to push this bullet by its rigid body to get it moving. So we're going to go physics 2D, rigid body 2D, and we will make sure we turn the gravity to 0 on our bullet. And for now, let's just give it the rigid body and test it out. We are also going to want a collider at some point, so we'll handle bullet collisions here in just a moment. But let's just set this up and try it. Now, for us to instantiate this bullet, I have to actually make it a prefab. So, and this isn't really a bullet, this is a beam. So let's just change its name to beam. And then I'm going to go to my prefabs folder here, and I'm going to drag that down in. And now I have my beam here. Here's the bullet that the player is shooting. And here's our beam prefab. I can remove the one from the scene. Now I have to go to my alien and I have to set him up in his script here. Okay, so he needs the bullet right here. So let's grab our bullet prefab and drag it right here into the bullet slot. The player he's going to get automatically from the script. This bullet speed here, let's go ahead and put a bullet speed in there. I've got a 250 in there now. Let's go ahead and leave it at 250. And last time shot should be 0. Let's put a shooting delay in of 1. That'll be 1 time per second. Then it'll wait 1 second between each one. And let's see what happens. If I hit play here now, he should start shooting in my direction. Oh, and there it goes. Okay. So you notice that he's shooting right towards me. I got a little push from that rock. I'm going to crash here. Let's try it again here. Alright, there we go. So you notice that he is shooting at me in my direction as I move by. He's going to continue to shoot. Now when he shoots, it's where I am at the time he shoots. So with the slow bullet speed like this, it's pretty easy to avoid the bullets as they come through. Alright, maybe not so much the asteroids. But that is working. He is shooting bullets. Now the other thing we might want to look at is when our player is dead for whatever reason, you notice how the player is still moving through the scene. And the alien is still shooting at him. So we probably want to make sure we disable the shooting if the player is currently disabled, so that it doesn't keep shooting bullets all around. Now let's make it so that these bullets can actually do something to our player. So if you remember, our player spaceship here has a rigid body and he has a capsule collider that is not marked as a trigger. So if we're going to do any kind of collision here with the bullet and this capsule collider, we could use the two different methods that we have. We could use a non-collision enter 2D, which would be using the collider here, or we could make the bullet a trigger collider, kind of like our bullets are, and then we could do an on-trigger enter 2D. So first, let's go back to our beam here. Let's drag him back out here in the scene, and let's add in the collider. So we want a, let's see, he's kind of round or capsule shape. Let's go ahead and add a capsule collider to him. Going to zoom in here, and let's pull that down a bit so that it fits more closely our bullet. So let's do something about like this. Maybe we'll pull the X in just even a little bit more. We really only want to get a hit if we get hit right kind of in the center of that guy. So let's try this. Okay, so we've got a collider, and let's go ahead and make this a trigger. And then we'll just use on trigger enter 2D to affect things with it, since that's how we're using our bullet. See over here, our bullet prefab has a trigger as well. So we'll handle bullets the same way. So we'll go back here to my beam that's out here in the scene. Now I made a change to him, so I'm going to have to update that to the prefab by hitting the apply button here. So the prefab gets that. Now, the other thing you'll notice, our bullet is tagged as a bullet. So we probably want to give this one a tag, but we may want these beams to do something different when they hit. So let's make a new tag for our beam here. So we'll go to tag, let's add one. Let's hit the plus sign to get another slot. Let's just call this beam. And we'll hit save there. So now we have a beam tag. We'll go back out here to our beam, and then we'll select that new tag we made from the list, and now he's tagged as a beam. Again, I made a change to my prefab out here in the hierarchy, so let's hit the apply button to get that applied back to the prefab. Because now if I delete this one from the hierarchy, out here in the prefab, you'll see we've got our capsule collider and we've got our tag. So it did save those changes. Alright. So now we've got a collider on here that's a trigger collider. So we have to decide, do we want these bullets to be ignored by asteroids? If so, we could let the bullets just pass right through the asteroids as they're trying to hit the player. Do we want the alien spaceship to blow up the asteroids as well? Do we want him to know if there's an asteroid in the way? All sorts of different options. Let's keep it simple for now. And say that the beams here will ignore the asteroids. So let's go look at the asteroid script here real quick. And let's just see what's happening and where it's doing things with bullets. Okay, so here's on trigger enter 2D. Right now it's reacting to a bullet, and that's all it's reacting to, because right here we're checking the tag. If it's a bullet, then it does everything to this matching bracket down here. So right now beams should go right through there because there's nothing in our on trigger enter 2D function that has anything to do with beams. Okay, so we should be okay with that. And so now we're going to go back to our spaceship controller here, and we're going to need to add an on trigger enter 2D function to our player so that he can handle being hit by things with trigger colliders that are marked as beams. So let's go ahead and put that right down here. On trigger enter 2D, and then we need a collider 2D, and we're going to call this other. And then remember, this runs automatically whenever something with a trigger collider on it hits the collider of this object. Okay, in this case the spaceship, our player spaceship. So we're going to check first of all to see if this is a beam, because if we don't, then we're going to react to our own bullets, because right now we're instantiating our bullets inside the collider of our player. So let's just do a check here. If other dot compare tag is a beam, then we want to take action. So if it's a beam, then we're going to go ahead and just lose a life. Okay, so how were we losing lives before? We were doing it right here just on on Collision Ender 2D. So we're going to do the same type of thing here. Now, because we're actually going to use this same kind of procedure here twice, it doesn't make sense to type it in twice. What would be better to do would be to take all the things that happen if we're going to die, respawning, checking to see if there's any lives, you know, checking for game over, playing the audio, all of this stuff in here. Let's go ahead and move this into a new function. Alright, so let's make that new function. We'll just put it, I guess, right up here. And we'll just call this void, and we'll just call this lose life. And then we're going to take and we're going to move all of this through the respawn, and then this. Let's take all this first. Let's cut all that out. And let's paste it in here. So if whenever we're going to lose a life, we'll go ahead and call this. It's going to take one away from our lives. It'll make the explosion. It'll update the text on our screen. It'll turn off our render and collider. It'll invoke the respawn function. It's then going to check to see if lives are less than or equal to 0. So it's going to say game over. We don't need to move this because this has to do with playing that collision sound. So we're going to leave that right there. Double check all of our brackets here. It looks like that's okay. Alright, so then down here, where we were doing all those instructions before in this if statement, we're going to go ahead and just call lose life. Alright, so if our collision was, the magnitude of that was bigger than our collision force that signifies death, then we'll call lose life. If not, we'll just play that collision audio and keep going on. Same thing down here. If we hit a tag that's got a beam, the object that's got the beam tag, we'll just call lose life, and that should cause all the same things to happen when we lose a life, and it'll kick in the respawn. It'll check for game over and call that if we're out of lives. Okay, so hopefully you saw those changes. Just move the little code out of on Collision Ender 2D and put it into a new function here called lose life. I'll pause here for just a second so you can see the full text here. Alright, and then here's on Collision Ender 2D and on Trigger Enter 2D. Alright, let's save this. We're going to go out here into Unity and check for errors. Let's clear out our console. Alright, no errors. So now, if we did this right, if we get hit by one of these bullets, or one of these beams from our alien spaceship, it should cause us to die. Okay, so let's get moving a little bit here. Let's see if he can hit me. I'm moving pretty slow. Alright, let's slow down so he can actually hit me now. And there we go. He hit me, and I went away. He's just kind of sitting there shooting. I guess we only have one life enabled right now. Let's test it out. Let's give ourselves some more lives here. Let's go to the spaceship. And we'll go down here to how many lives he has. Let's go ahead and set him back to 3. And then let's just see here. So I'm just going to sit still and let him hit me. There we go. He took a life away. And then when I popped up, that's my invulnerability. But now that that went away, he started shooting at me. Again, he starts kind of shooting at me right away here. And I can't really get away from him. So we probably maybe once he kills us, he just kind of goes away. He moves off the screen. He stops shooting. I don't know. We'll have to play with that a little bit. But that has his bullets affecting me, but not affecting the asteroid. That will bring us to the end of this video on getting the alien spacecraft to shoot at our player and blow him up. Hope you enjoyed this one and that you learned a lot. As always, if you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.